Y'all don't cancel me yet. Don't start canceling me today. This is how my face was looking when I figured out that we had to talk about Helen Keller today. And so welcome to Burgundy Blue Commentary. If you didn't know, it's your first time here, please like, comment, subscribe. And over here, we talk about what we want to talk about when we're ready to talk about it. And I know this is totally odd, but today I want to talk about Helen Keller. Yes, the Helen Keller we learned about in school. I want to talk about this. So this is actually going around, hey Wyoming, on TikTok. And when I tell you, okay, like I said, don't cancel your girl. But before make sure you guys like the video, okay, before you leave, before you run up out of here. So this is the thing. I was over on TikTok minding my business like I always do. And it's this guy. He has 2 million views already just talking about Helen Keller. And I'm like, how could that be? And I was supposed to visit my family today. And so I had a mishap. So I said, I'm going to go ahead and discuss this live because I was going to do it in the morning. But now we have another subject in the morning. I was like, okay, let me listen to this. And then I was talking to my friend, and we were on the phone for an hour and a half almost, talking about, she had so many points about Helen Keller and what we learned in school. And it blew my mind because if you didn't know, Helen Keller was born deaf and blind, right? Not born, I'm sorry. About 18 months or so, she got an illness. And this will be for the people we know, and as long as you're respectful, this will be an interactive show. If you have something to say about Helen Keller and what you learned, I'll drop the link. So we ended up talking about this, and right, so she got sick, right? And we'll go through the facts. This is me off the head. We were talking about it. I said she was born deaf and blind, and my friend said no, she got sick and then she was deaf and blind and mute. But then we found videos of Helen Keller talking, so she wasn't mute. Okay, but wait a minute, Helen Keller, this whole thing, Helen Keller flew a plane, she wrote books, and she was born in the 1800s, and it's rumors that she was racist. So when I started going down the TikTok rabbit hole, I said, I want to bring this to my audience, and I want to get you guys' take on this. And if you like, when's the last time you thought about Helen Keller? I don't even think that I've seen like my niece or my nephews or my god kids bring home like when they had to do a book report on Helen Keller like we used to do. Helen Keller was a staple to learn about in school, right? In grammar school, especially. So let's start with this Time Life article and go from there. And you know what? Maybe I should start with a TikTok clip, and I'll put his link in there. His name is Dev Allen. And he had all these let's start with this young lady. Let's start with Kiana Lawson over on TikTok. I'm gonna put the link here, and then we'll go from there. Okay. And he's beefing with Helen Keller super hard, and this is just interesting.
Y'all have seen the videos of the man on here that is beefing with goddamn Helen Keller. Yes, Helen Keller, y'all. Yes, y'all. So it's a man on here by the name of Dev that has a 10-part playlist as of today where he has a ongoing beef with goddamn Helen Keller. He said he has been beefing with Helen Keller since 2021, and he said he's standing on her goddamn neck because ain't no way she was blind, deaf, and mute, and she did all of this stuff. He said, ain't no goddamn way. And you know what? I gotta agree with him. As a kid, we were fed this stuff about Helen Keller, about how she overcame adversities and she just had all of these challenges and things that were up against her. And she did not allow that to stop her from being an accomplished woman. But Deb, like, wait a minute, hold up 1 second now. Hold up 1 second. How did she write a book if she don't know how to read? Because again, y'all, she deaf and she blind and she mute. So how you write a book? I mean, I know present day we got audio books and stuff. People can talk, but again, y'all, she was mute. She can't talk. She can't hear. She can't see. So how she do that? How she fly a plane, y'all? How did she fly a plane? Who put her in the plane? Who buckled her into that plane and sent her on her way? How she know where she was going? How she put the coordinates in? How she know her left from her right? It is so many questions that are rising from this conversation that Dev has sparked. And I am with him 100%. They even go on to say that she was a public speaker. How? How was she a public speaker when she was mute? Yo, we got to make this shit make sense. Are y'all following what Dad putting out here? Are we following what he putting out here? Because how was she a public speaker? Then it went on to say that she was racist. How? Who was she racist towards? She can't see. Hell, she don't even know what color she is unless somebody told her. But wait a minute. How would somebody tell her if she can't hear? Y'all see what we're saying? Y'all see where this going? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and repost some of Deb's videos so y'all can go watch them.
I would never think in 2025 we would have gossip and questions about Helen Keller. This is insane because I remember doing a book report on Helen Keller, and it's a story of resilience, right? And we were thinking because they said that she wasn't just an advocate, she was into politics at one point, right? So we're wondering, like, was Helen Keller media driven back then? This is very interesting. So let's go to Deb's point. Sorry, I didn't know she was gonna blaspheme that much, but let's go, guys.
Y'all been on here telling me, watch the Helen Keller documentary. Everything will make sense once you watch the documentary. You'll figure out how she did it. Roger, cut that damn documentary off because they playing in my face, bro. They playing in my face. The very beginning of the documentary, they talking about the whole graduated college. You meaning to tell me some miracle language only her and her aunt was able to come together and learn so they could communicate with each other? They taught this language to the college professor. The college professor able to teach Helen Keller college education in this special language? No, nigga, y'all, bro, be real, bro. They gave her that to make her feel good, to make her feel like she was a part. Now, this part right here, this one I knew, bro, they think I'm a dumbass for real. They say this a public speaker. A public speaker. Do I got boo-boo the fool wrote across my forehead? Y'all, just look real good for me right quick. I might not be able to see it. Do I got boo-boo the fool wrote across my forehead to believe this hoe publicly speaking? She mute. You can't speak. Public speaking, man, you get up there, you talking. The whole mute. Y'all just giving her accomplishments she ain't never did, bro. That's what I'm saying. I cut it off. This is the last video I'm making about this woman, bro. She was a phony. She was a fake. Her auntie just wanted her to feel good and feel like a regular kid, so she just convinced all these people to give her this stuff to make her feel good. Helen Keller don't even know what the hell. She don't even know where she at right now in the afterlife, bro. That's what I'm saying, man.
Okay, so Wyoming said Helen Keller didn't fly the plane by herself. They handed her the controls for 15 to 20 minutes. Her interpreter spelled the instructions in Keller's palm of her hand. And you know what? We got to play some more because I was almost shamed to listen to him. And then I was just like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So let's go with the facts first. Let's start with time life, and then we're gonna get into Dev a little bit more and how he's been beefing with Helen Keller since 2021. And I know we're so used to the future now. That's going to be our video tomorrow. We talk about in your lifetime, what is the one technology upgrade that you've seen, you were blessed to see? So like if you were born in the 60s, 70s, 80s, stuff like that. What was the one technology upgrade you were able to see? Like maybe it was 8 tracks to records to CDs to now music in your phone. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But I'm like, this is very interesting. And let's not get to the part where she's supposed to be racist, because that like, how would she know what colors? Well, I guess I don't know. So LJ says, like Margaret Sanger, Hillary Clinton's hero. I gotta look at that. Hey, Just Humble Me Clark, so good to see you. Do you get what I'm saying? This is such a. I was like, and I haven't talked about Helen Keller since like grade school, probably. So the plain thing was performative. Okay, let's start with the timeline. And like I said, if you guys want to join in the conversation, you're welcome. Let's start with this, and then we'll get into it. I want to see what do you think? What do you believe? This is quite interesting. I was like, what? And then I don't think she's mute, because I found a video of her speaking. So I don't think she was mute. I think she taught herself how to talk. But then even that's, how would you know what the words? I guess you got Braille, right? But how would you know what the words are sounding like? I guess it's through the Braille. So what's a word spelled two different ways that sound different? Something like that. Like, what would you know? You know what I mean? It's totally different. So, hey, Cher, how are you? Oh, I see Choose. Thanks for being here. I see you here in the bushes. It's very, very interesting. Very interesting. So, yeah, let's go to it.
Helen Keller's image is on the Alabama State Quarter. It's an image taken from a photograph of her reading a Braille book. And there's a motto that says "Spirit of Courage." In some sense, so, you have a woman reading a book, and that's understood to represent courage. And this is not to say that Helen Keller wasn't a courageous person, but it's kind of a safe message without any sort of controversial overtones to it. It's like Helen Keller worked hard and she got educated, and that's all we need to know.
Ooh, thanks, Cher.
Pretty much everyone learns about Helen Keller in school. From picture books to the movie The Miracle Worker, she's a staple in children's education. But we only learn about one aspect of a multifaceted and complicated person.
The dominant story about Helen Keller is not by Helen Keller. It's by sighted hearing people putting forth Helen Keller's story.
Haben Girma is a disability rights lawyer who is also deafblind. For Girma, getting Helen Keller's story right is personal.
The story focuses on her being 6-7 years old and things happening to her. People teaching her, people giving her water. She comes across as very passive, but if you learn about her life from her own words, you realize she was an agent of change. She advocated for women, people of color. Disability rights mattered to her. But the dominant story doesn't focus on that. Since society only frames her as a little girl, a lot of people subconsciously learn to infantilize disabled adults. That makes it difficult to get a job, to be treated with respect, to get good quality education and health care. That's not right.
Because we are so focused on Keller as a child, we often miss out on her long life of activism.
One of her passions was really the rights of workers and unionists. The progressive era, when she was working politically in different organizations, was a period of rapid industrialization. There were these new conditions in which workers were subjected to heightened inequality and even danger and risk physically. She pointed out that a lot of times people went blind from accidents on the shop floor. She saw this exploitation of employees by industrialists, factory owners, corporations. And so she became involved with the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World. She read Marx. She corresponded with Eugene Debs, who was the major socialist at the time. And she helped co-found the ACLU, which we now sort of associate with freedom of speech. She had a spirit of wanting to help the collective good rather than individuals on their own.
She found the American Foundation for the Blind, which was an advocacy and education organization. She spent her life from 1925 onward as a spokesperson and as a fundraiser for that cause.
She was an early member of the NAACP. She condemns lynching. She condemns the racism perpetrated against African Americans. Many people like to think of them as opposed to racism today. It was not so typical to be opposed to racism in 1916 if you were a privileged white woman. It just wasn't. And she was.
People would often ask her, stop talking about racism and women's rights. Just talk about the blind and inspire us about the blind. She found that frustrating and continued to talk anyway.
When we talk about oppression and prejudice, disability is always sort of off to one side. But for Helen Keller, it was all of a piece.
You can't advocate for disability rights if you're not also advocating for racial justice and gender equality.
Critics of Helen Keller point to one notable exception in her advocacy for people with disabilities. She was once a supporter of eugenics, and now reviled school of thought that sought to improve human populations by breeding out certain traits, like, for example, certain disabilities.
That's absolutely true. She did write about eugenics, and she was concerned that children with disabilities, who with severe disabilities, would not be able to function in society.
Wow, that's deep right there, right? Wow, I didn't know that. So she wanted to, was she for eugenics? That is very interesting. I did not know that.
Write about eugenics, and she was concerned that children with disabilities, who with severe disabilities, would not be able to function in society. I think it was part of that zeitgeist at the time. I think it's very easy to take history out of context. Very early on, she moved away from that position, and I think she would herself be heartbroken to think that she did not value every life, because she absolutely did.
Oh, very interesting. Maybe that's where they get a little bit of the racist part of the rumor of Helen Keller. And I also heard, I don't know if this is true, maybe they'll get to that her father, he owned slaves as well. So that could have been a point too.
People need time to grow and learn. We need to forgive people when they acknowledge they've made mistakes.
Still, Helen Keller's prominence is another reminder of how our American history often focuses on the stories of wealthy white people.
I don't have a perspective, on Helen Keller. She's just another, despite disabilities, privileged white person. I am a Black disabled lesbian who happens to be poor. You want to talk about intersectionalities and marginalizations. I'm looking up from the bottom. And I'm just out here trying to not only fight for the rights of all disabled, but wanting to highlight, even among disabled, there are those of us whose stories don't get told.
Anita Cameron herself was part of history in 1990 when she and several other activists from the disability rights group ADAPT crawled up the steps of the U.S. Capitol building to demand the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Okay, we're gonna have to cover this. I had no idea this happened. So March 12th, 1990. Wow. This is really good. I had no idea this is what it took, and this was the process, the protest. Wow.
The law that now requires public buildings to have ramps and other accessibility features.
On a sunny, hot morning, we gathered up to do our crawl. That was the only way that we could get there, and we were trying to highlight the fact that people with disabilities, we live in second-class citizenship. Kind of went in stealth, started out as a tour, and when we got into the rotunda, we just took it over. When it all was said and done, 104 of us were arrested.
What the heck?
It was number 81. I was in the center of a knot of people who had chained ourselves together. The combination of the crawl and the takeover of the rotunda is what got the ADA passed so quickly.
The fight for disability rights is far from over, but the ADA was a milestone achievement. It completely changed the way people with disabilities lived and recognized people with disabilities as people with civil rights. Helen Keller is certainly not the only disability rights champion we should be learning about. But learning about her work and her activism more fully is a step towards understanding the contributions so many other disabled Americans have made and continue to make to our shared history.
And she was born in 1880, and she died in 1968. It was a very long life.
That is beautiful.
So I think when we forget about the causes that she supported, it does damage to our understanding about disability.
Some people have a complicated relationship with Helen Keller because she's been forced on us as a role model to never complain, which is not true. She complained when it was the right thing to do. Because sometimes when things are wrong, you have to complain to create change.
I was watching that with you guys. I did not know about the ADA and the crawl up the steps to the rotunda. I knew nothing about that. That was really, really good, really deep. And then for her to feel that way about people with disabilities, and that was deep too. And I mean, I can't really talk about it. I've been blessed, you know what I mean? Like, you never know what can happen in your lifetime. You know, you can have perfect health and then later have a disability, right? Just to see that she maybe she was just tired. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my thought on that. Y'all got a lot of good points. Yeah, I agree, LJ. And who would ever deny a person's rights? Right? I don't know why she would do that. But remember, like, that's why we're having this discussion. Like, did they tell us with Helen Keller? Did they make her the poster child, which I guess they did, for disabilities? And who brought up Patty Duke? I love the Patty Duke show. I forgot Patty Duke was. I remember watching that movie in school, and that was the whole thing when she felt the water. And thank you to whoever said, like, when we were talking about pronouncing the words, how I guess the vibrations of the throat, that's how she felt it. This is Interesting. Very interesting. So let's get back to why I'm here. And that's back to Dev over on TikTok. He has this 10-part series on Helen Keller that everyone's talking about. And he's like, I've been beefing with Helen Keller since 2021. It's like, what? Like, that was just, but it's very interesting because I think Chu said it. They only told us one part. No, she said, great. No one talks about this. All I remember is her taking food off everyone's plate in the movie and pumping water. More proof of how we only know one or have limited information. Yeah. And I'm not saying what Devin is saying is true. It just was really a good conversation. Like, wait a minute now. Now, wait a minute. Let's go to
a figment of our imagination.
That's
Bro. That's all she is. Helen Keller ain't nothing but a figment of our imagination, bro. That's all she is, man. That woman never existed, bro. I've been beefing with this host since like 2021, and I'm sitting there telling y'all, something clicked in my head one day. Bro, you mean to tell me this woman was deaf, blind, and mute? That means she can't hear, talk, or see. And you mean to tell me she wrote a book in what language? Bro, I just started thinking about that. You can't teach her nothing. She couldn't even learn Braille, bro. You can't teach her what Braille is. At least if somebody... Which one is it that you learn Braille? If you blind, at least you can learn it by hearing. She can't hear. So that's what I'm saying, bro. Then y'all mean to tell me she wrote a book and flew a plane. Who idea was it? Hey, let's put this deaf, blind, and woman that can't talk. Man, just think about it, bro. Just think about you up there in the plane. It start malfunctioning, bro. How you gonna let that woman know the plane malfunctioning? You can't communicate with her. She just gonna be sitting there staring off into space with them blind eyes. That's what I'm saying, bro. I ain't got time for that, man. Y'all gotta think I'm the biggest goofball walking this earth. If you want me to believe that woman really existed and did the stuff y'all saying she did, I ain't buying it, bro.
Someone said she had a British accent. I'm done. Did she have a British accent?
And I still ain't off of this Helen Keller situation because y'all just naive, bro. Think about what they trying to tell y'all. This woman couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't talk. That means you have zero way of communicating with this woman. You can't talk to her. You can't teach her Braille. You can't trace in her hand.
I feel like she did know Braille. Because Braille is for when you're blind, right? So what did her being... This is we were on the phone so long. But okay, so if she's deaf, sign language. So you would have to use sign language to teach her, sign language in the hand to teach her Braille, right? It's the way to do everything. It's a way to do everything. Okay, so I just want to go over here to Wikipedia right quick. I know you're not in college, you're not supposed to use that as a source, but I just want to jump over here. So, at 19 months old, Keller contracted an unknown illness described by doctors as an acute congestion of the stomach and the brain. Okay, contemporary doctors believe it may have been meningitis caused by the bacterium, okay, or possibly, influenza, Haemophilus influenzae, which can cause the same symptoms, but is less likely because of its 97% juvenile mortality rate at that time. She was able to recover from her illness, but was left permanently blind and deaf, as she recalled in her autobiography, At the Sea of Dense Fog. At that time, Keller was able to communicate somewhat with Martha Washington, who was 2 years older and the daughter of the family cook, and understand the girl's signs. By the age of 7, Keller had more than 60 home signs to communicate with her family and could distinguish people by the vibration of their footsteps. Yeah, like sometimes by their cadence, like when they walk in the room, I could tell, not to say that, I could tell by somebody's steps when they're coming in the room. In 1886, Keller's mother, inspired by an account in the Charles Dickens American Notes of the successful education of Lauren Bridgman, a deaf and blind woman, dispatched a young Keller and her father to consult physician J. Julian Chisholm, an eye, ear, nose, and throat specialist in Baltimore for advice. Chisholm referred the Kellers to Alexander Graham Bell, who was working with the deaf children at the time. Bell advised them to contact Perkins Institute for the Blind, the school where Bridgman had been educated. It was then located in South Boston. So Michael Agnos, the school's director, asked Ann Sullivan, a 20-year alumna of the school who was visually impaired, to become Keller's instructor. It was the beginning of nearly a 50-year-long relationship Sullivan developed with Keller as her governess and later her companion. Okay. Now, I want to say this. The power of having money. The power of her dad having money, right? They went through all those steps, okay? So Sullivan arrived at Keller's house on March the 5th, 1887, a day Keller will forever remember as my soul's birthday. Sullivan immediately began to teach Helen to communicate by spelling words into her hand, beginning with D-O-L-L. Y'all remember that from the movie, right? Doll. For the doll that she had bought Keller as a present. Keller initially struggled with lessons since she could not comprehend that every object had a word identifying it. When Sullivan was trying to teach Keller the word mug, Keller became so frustrated that she broke the mug. Keller remembered how she soon began imitating Sullivan's hand gestures. I did not know that I was spelling a word or even that words existed. I was simply making my fingers go in a monkey-like imitation. So the next month, Keller made a breakthrough when she realized that the motions her teacher was making on the palm of her hand while running cool water over her hand symbolized the idea of water. Writing in her autobiography, The Story of My Life, Keller recalled the moment. I stood still, my whole attention fixed upon the motions of her fingers. Suddenly, I felt a misty consciousness as of something forgotten, a thrill of returning thought, and somehow the mystery of language was revealed to me. I knew then that W-A-T-E-R meant the wonderful, cool something that was flowing over my hand. The living word awakened my soul, gave it light, hope, and set it free. So Keller quickly demanded that Sullivan sign the names of all the other familiar objects in her world. Okay. So we're going to read some more, but we're going to hear from this young man first. Wyoming said the deaf learn to dance by vibration. This is very interesting. And I just thought that, I think that if you look at the comments that he has, he brought a real conversation up. Like people were like, hey, what? And we do know that now we have disabilities, things going on here, but thank God that it's medicine and more proactive things to help people to be able to live an independent life now. And this, we have to remember, this was the 1800s, but it did sound different to be like, she flew a plane, she wrote several books. How did she do these things? And I just want to piggyback and go to his video and try to match it up, because it was just really deep. Like, yeah, I'm with choose. We know water. That's all we know. Water. That's it. So one more. Let's see what he had to say next.
And I hope she remembers the
Okay, let's go to Wikipedia again to see the part about flying the plane. Let's see if we can find that. Let's see. I didn't know she was on a was she on a quarter or something like that? I didn't know that. Okay, let's go. Let me see. Y'all, this is I know y'all was like, Berg, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? So it says, yes, Helen Keller flew a plane in June of 1946, taking the controls of a Douglas Skymaster for about 20 minutes while traveling from Rome to Paris over the Mediterranean Sea. With instructions relayed to her by her secretary, Polly Thompson, through the tactical finger spelling on her hand, Keller handled the controls calmly and steadily. The experience was a testament of her capabilities and gave her a sense of physical freedom. Okay, so that's awesome. My question here would be, did Polly know how to fly the plane? Because what if Helen didn't understand, and then how was she instructed to fly the plane? I'm sorry, these are questions. These are questions. How did she fly a plane? Do y'all remember encyclopedias when the encyclopedia people would come door to door? Like this, the encyclopedia will have to be updated. Okay. So this is interesting. How did she? So what was the training like? Okay, let me see what y'all saying, because I said don't cancel me today. This was very interesting. So Wyoming says when your body has something missing, other parts of your body become stronger to compensate. I believe that. Yeah, I believe that. Wyoming, my son has holoprosencephaly, can't walk or speech much, autistic symptoms, but not autistic. Oh, okay, share. Prayers to him. Prayers to all of you guys. And I wonder like, how was that learning a new method, teaching a new method for communication, right? Just for communication. And some people are born and have to learn it all their life. And some people, maybe something happens later in life where a sense is taken away from us, and then we have to start over. And sometimes it's harder to learn something when you're older, right? Intuitions equal established organization or custom. Example, schools of thought, colleges, hospital, legal systems, financial entities which serve a specific purpose. Thanks, LJ. Okay. The pilot gave the interpreter the instructions. The pilot was there. So it was 3 people in the plane. She flew the plane like I drove the farm truck when I was 5. My dad's sitting by me. Oh, yeah. Now that's cute. Okay, let's go back to Deb. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. It wasn't up there. I'm sorry about that. Let's go back to it. Okay, let's go here, y'all.
Man, bro, they've been lying to us this whole time. See, I knew they were lying. That's what I've been trying to tell y'all. So I'm sure some of y'all been seeing this beef I've been having with Helen Keller, right? Somebody in my comments said they just asked ChatGPT about this. Turns out Helen Keller wasn't born blind, deaf, and mute. She just lost them at a young age. No wonder she could do all the stuff. That don't make her special, bro. She learned it before she did. Bro, that's what I was taught that made her special, was the fact that she was blind, deaf, and mute, and learned how to do all these things while being blind, deaf, and mute. You learned some of this stuff before you went blind, and then you just carried it over. That's how they was able to.
I think he's wrong right here, because wasn't she only 19 months? So she didn't learn that much, because it's almost like your world starts to disappear, even if she saw things at 1 or 2. I can't even remember stuff that happened when I was 2 years old, right? So I think that she definitely started from scratch, for sure.
To teach her stuff, bro. That's how she was able to learn Braille and write in the hand. And that's how.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wyoming. Can you guys hear? Let me know if you can hear. And then Cher says, if Helen fascinates you, go watch the movie Temple Grandin. I met her twice. She's an autistic woman who people all over the world listen to. Okay, I have to look at that. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
She already had some knowledge of stuff beforehand. They don't tell us that in school. That's what I'm telling you. They try to make it seem like she was just born blind, deaf, and mute, and then all of a sudden she just learned it. That's wrong, bro. You can't do that, bro. That is impossible. If somebody,
I'm not gonna lie, I thought they told us in school she was born that way. I didn't remember that she had the sickness, but that was like 100 years ago when I read that part. But yeah.
They don't know anything and don't have no knowledge of nothing, and you can't communicate it to them, that means they ain't gonna never learn nothing. And that's what they want to make it seem like. That's why I'm telling y'all, I knew they were lying to us, bro. I knew it, but now we don't know the truth. She wasn't.
And I think the one that shocked me is the part where we were talking about with LJ when we were saying the eugenics situation. Now that shocked me. For sure. Okay, let's go to the next one.
I'm about to prove it to y'all once and for all that Helen Keller ain't writing no damn book, okay? I'm about to take this crayon and I'm gonna close my eyes and write something in Japanese on this piece of paper, and I'm gonna get y'all.
He a mess. He is a mess. That's not the same thing, but let's watch him.
I'll translate it for me, okay? And I know y'all probably wondering why Japanese, bro. I'm gonna tell y'all why. Because I know as much about Japanese as damn Helen Keller know about anything, which is nothing at all. Also, how she probably held the pencil like this. Watch this. What's something in Japanese, bro? I be seeing some symbols sometime like that. I think I be seeing this one sometime, bro. Yeah, I done seen that one before. All right. Translate that. Somebody take that and translate that into a book for me, bro. This is all Helen Keller was doing over and over when they handed her that pencil. That's what it turned out like. And y'all telling me she wrote a book, and that.
I see what he's saying, but I think he got it a little wrong. Because she also had a typewriter. Now, she didn't write a book. She wrote several books. So once she got to learn how to talk and sign, couldn't she just give it to an interpreter? I don't know why. And when we finish, I'm going to tell you about another historical person that someone else is on TikTok talking about. And again, made me be like, oh, my goodness.
Do I got boo-boo the fool wrote across my forehead? Y'all been on here telling me, watch the Helen Keller documentary. Everything will make sense. Once you watch the documentary, you'll figure out how she did it. Roger, cut that damn documentary off because they playing in my face, bro. They playing in my face. The very beginning of the documentary, they talking about the whole graduated college. You meaning to tell me some miracle language only her and her aunt was able to come together and learn so they could communicate with each other? They taught this language to the college professor. The college professor able to teach Helen Keller college education in this special language? No, nigga, y'all, bro, be real, bro. They gave her that to make her feel good, to make her feel like she was a part. Now, this part right here, this one I knew, bro, they think I'm a dumbass for real. They say this whole a public speaker. Do I got boo-boo the fool wrote across my forehead? Y'all just look real good for me right quick. I might not be able to see it. Do I got boo-boo the fool wrote across my forehead to believe this whole publicly speaking? She mute. You can't speak public speaking, man, you get up there and you talking. The whole mute. Y'all just giving her accomplishments she ain't never did, bro. That's what I'm saying. I cut it off. This is the last video I'm making about this woman, bro. She was a phony. She was a fake.
This is so crazy to listen to, I swear. Now let's see. I think I found where she did speak. Is this Helen Keller or is this a movie? Let's see. Let's see. Let's watch this together. Let's see how this goes. Let's see if we can watch this together.
I am not dumb now. No. She felt the vibration of the spoken word. Placing her hand in this position, the thumb resting on the throat, right at the larynx, the first finger on the lips, the second on the nose, we found that she could feel the vibration of spoken words. After her 7th lesson, she was able to speak the sentence word by word, I am not dumb now. No.
Okay. So we're going to go back to Deb. That was very interesting. Let's see. And he talks more about, even though he said he wasn't going to talk about Helen Keller anymore, he did.
This guy.
Okay, let's go back.
Right here seems to have some issues with some of my thoughts on Helen Keller. So I just wanted to listen with y'all so we could hear what he got to say. All right, let's hear him out.
No shade, no tea. Like, I'm not trying to be petty, but like, Helen Keller did exist.
Yeah. Okay.
I hear you. This type of like thinking, you have all of your senses, and yet none of your senses told you to pick up a book and research her.
All right. First point. Yes, I do have all of my senses, and I'm not the one on here claiming to write a book and fly an airplane and do all this stuff with my senses. I can't do that with all 5 of them. She down 3. She ain't got but 2 damn touch and taste, and I don't even know if the taste buds working. You want me to be honest? So that answer that right there. She the one claiming to do this with 2 senses, not me.
I also feel like this comes from like a place of ignorance because just because, well, one, she's deaf and blind, or she was. It happened to her when she was 19 months approximately.
Okay. If she was 19 months, how much could she have learned in 19 months? I could take a 19-month-old baby right now, blindfold this nigga, close his ears off and his mouth, and raise him up like that without being able to see, hear, or talk. And I promise you, he ain't gonna be able to do nothing. That's my whole point, bro. He ain't gonna be able to do nothing for the rest of his life if I do that. And she did all.
And this is not to stand up for Helen Keller, because word on the curb is she believed in eugenics.
Oh man, bro, a blind woman racist. That's what I'm saying. I'm the dumbass and the ignorant one. But you over here not wanting to talk about, oh, I ain't standing up for Helen Keller because she was into eugenics. Helen Keller didn't know whether she was white, black, or what. I promise you, a 19-month-old baby don't know colors, and damn sure ain't remembering nothing that's gonna carry them into adulthood, bro. Get that out of my face, bro. This dude on here claiming I'm the dumbass though. That's what I'm saying. So this guy right here seems to have some issues with some of my thoughts on Helen Keller. So y'all want to know where my beef with Helen Keller started at? I'll let y'all know, bro. About 5 years ago, I was zooted one night off of the yard, just sitting there, zooted. And I seen a video about it, and I just got to thinking about it, bro. I was like, dog, this don't make no sense at all. You mean to tell me this woman that couldn't see, hear, or talk was able to somehow figure out enough stuff about the world to where she was able to write a book, graduate college, fly a plane, public speaker. You a public speaker and you mute. Okay. Anyway, bro. So I just get to thinking about this. Then I started noticing the more people I asked about it, I'm like, bro, nobody can answer these questions. People talk about, oh, she learned how to communicate in Braille. Okay, well, Braille is for blind people that can still hear. She can't hear. So how did she learn Braille? She can't. So then they started talking about, oh, well, they were writing in her hand, and they taught her stuff by writing in her hand and teaching her what it meant with the objects and different. Okay, how can you do that? She lost everything at 19 months. You are not conscious enough of the world at 19 months to know enough about stuff to where people can tell you about different objects and write in your hand and you put 2 and 2 together. You can't do that. Not to mention, bro, that they on here talking about the woman didn't believe in Shakespeare and she was racist. How do you know this? How did this woman come to the conclusion? How did she study enough about William Shakespeare to come to the conclusion she don't believe in him, then figure out a way to articulate this back out to other people? How was a woman who, I'm sure by 19 months, she don't remember a black person, white person, none of that. At 19 months, you go blind and now you into eugenics and you racist, bro. That's what, none of it makes sense, bro. And nobody wants to explain how. They just tell you, just believe. Just believe. Just be a dumbass. Go against your logical reasoning and believe. I'm not going for that, bro. I'll be damn on going for that. Y'all want to know where my beef with Helen Keller started at? I'll let y'all know, bro. About 5 years ago, I was zooted one night off of the... Yeah, how she an atheist and I ain't even never heard of a Braille Bible before. That's what I'm saying, bro. I don't even think they got one of those out yet, bro. Dude, I was just sitting out here talking to my grandparents.
He said, how is she an atheist? And she don't got a Braille. We gonna hear this one, then we go. We out of here.
About this whole Helen Keller situation, right? And my grandpa gonna talk about she was our hero back in the day, and you sitting out here acting like she just didn't do none of that stuff. They just made it up. I said, that's exactly what I'm telling you, that they made it up. The woman couldn't learn Braille. Then he gonna talk about they invented Braille because of her. She was part of the reason why Braille was invented. I said, well, if it's just that easy then and anybody could do it, then you go up in there and you plug your ears and blindfold yourself and you and grandma come up with a new language and let me know what it is and how to communicate with y'all, and I'll pick up on it too then. And we'll all just start talking this new secret language you invented. Since it's just so easy, you know what I'm saying? Then my grandma's sitting there talking about well, you leaving out one main factor, baby. God. I said, well, man, this woman claiming to be an atheist. That's what I'm telling you, bro. She was a racist atheist who didn't believe in William Shakespeare, bro. And that's what I'm sitting there telling you. I'd never even heard of a Braille Bible. So for her to even, how did she come up? Where did she get any information about God at, bro? That's what I want to know. I mean.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. But we definitely went through the history of Helen Keller so we can find out, I just wanted to know, what did you remember what they told us about Helen Keller? Now, it's one more person that people on TikTok are just asking about the story, if you will. Not saying it didn't happen, somewhat happened, a little bit happened. It's this question where people are like, okay, and is it wrong if it's a little bit exaggerated to help others? Y'all let me know your thoughts. But this is interesting, right? The other story is something that I would have to get one of my friends to help me talk about. And I remember this like yesterday, and it was the Diary of Anne Frank, right? This story right here, not to say it didn't happen. How did they find the diary? If everything was exactly what Anne Frank had to say. Some people think Anne Frank did live after that. They just couldn't find her. It's going around on TikTok, and I was like, that was one of the first stories I think I learned about the Holocaust as a young girl. And this is very interesting. Like, people are asking these questions, and if history is specific, I think it's the whole thing. Is it specific, or was it sprinkled down a little bit? It's like I have a friend, and they're a different religion, and I wear a cross on my neck. And one thing he told me when I was super young, he was like, so if Jesus died on a railroad track, will you have that around your neck? And I was like, what? It was just a question. And I was like, okay, is it symbolism? What is it? Like, how do we know exactly how things went because we weren't there. So these are the questions going around on this history TikTok, and it's opening up conversations. Some people agree, some people disagree, and they have lengthy conversations about it because we were taught these things in grade school. If you guys don't recall, if you have time, please go to our historical chats and lessons. We had Gardis Watts over there, and he broke down some of the things with Dr. Martin Luther King and how it just, they only teach us the I have a dream speech, but it was so much more to that, right? So much more. And we learned just this one thing about Martin Luther King in Black History Month, right? In Black History Month, we learned this one thing. Hold on, I'm just gonna pull it up. It was called Who Was Dr. Martin Luther King? I'm gonna put this in the chat. And we only learned this one thing. He said, I have a dream, and that's it. But it's so much more to who he was that we don't learn. We don't learn, especially when it gets to, was he a little radical? Like what was, how did he feel about the civil rights movement? Was he tired? Was he a little more like Malcolm X than people want to tell us? It's very, very interesting. Okay. So I'll put that live in there if you're interested. LJ says Anne Frank's diary is as real as Alice Haley's roots. Verifiable facts. Okay. Force-fed education. Like once you go to school, they force you to choose if you right-handed or left-handed. Ambidextrous, not even an option. So back in the day, in Louisiana, my aunts, uncles, things of that nature, when they went to people of that nature, my family, when this is the story they told us, when they went to Catholic school, LJ, they left-handed was a sign of the devil or something like that. So they would like force them to be right-handed, It's very interesting. Cher says, I was 16 before I found out people had different colored skin. I was around it my whole life, but no one ever brought it to our attention because it didn't matter. Really? So Cher, so wait, you were 16? Were you around all the people with the same skin color? Did I misunderstand? Like, were you around everybody with the same skin color and then you branched out into the world and saw different color skin people? Or did you literally walk around with different skin color people and just didn't see the color? Let me know. Proponent of eugenics, and yet that should be overlooked. I don't think so. Why? Because it makes people feel uncomfortable. That's exactly what it is. Like, they don't want to tarnish the history because it would make somebody feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Of Helen Keller. But that was a part of it. You know what I mean? No, I was raised in the military, completely colorblind. Okay. Google Charlie Chaplin's greatest speech in history. It's a scene of Charlie in a movie dressed like Hitler, but hearing the speech is amazing. Okay, I will do that. I enjoy talking to y'all. And that's another subject I would like to talk about, the silent pictures. I appreciate talking with y'all. I just thought this was kind of interesting, and I wanted to just add something different to what we talk about. So thanks for joining me, and I appreciate all your input on stuff like that. Like it's almost like, I think for me, like I said, don't cancel me. Like the Bible, who wrote the Bible? Like, who wrote it? How do we know they were telling the truth when they're telling us these are the teachings that we were supposed to abide by? Which is cool. But it's a lot of questions when you get down to history and the way we live. And I just thought this was really interesting because and what are the other things they teach us as kids? It's really interesting. I'll just say the military is also an institutional. It has never been colorblind. Tuskegee, the Tuskegee Airmen is very. Oh, now I would love to cover that. I would love to cover that. And the experiments they had on the Tuskegee. Oh my gosh. Oh. Let me know when you want to do that show. Thanks, Gardis. Yeah, it's just so many things that I think is pretty cool to have an open discussion with, just because which is why I referenced the Martin Luther King chat that you did with us. Thank you so much for that. Because it was so many things I didn't know. I'm like, Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. And Jesse Jackson was with him when he was, that's what I was told, right? That Jesse Jackson was there when he got assassinated. And it's so much more. Okay. Cher said, I actually got beat up on Martin Luther King's birthday in public school. Perplexed me. Principal explained it was a color thing. The second I learned it, it broke my heart for people everywhere. Wow. We live in a world, right? We live in a world. And yeah, I would like to do a little more of that history talk and a little biblical talk. And how possibly, why do we have so many different religions and different things like that. It just was interesting. But I really like shows that bring history into it. I remember it's this show called American Horror Story, right? I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but I really liked that show. I think it was Ryan, I forgot his name. He wrote it. Ryan Murphy. He wrote American Horror Story. And in one season, they were at this asylum. And a spoiler alert, it was this girl and she was missing and no one knew who she was. And it was just, she was given a history of Anne Frank. She was supposedly thought she was Anne Frank. And it was really interesting. It made me go back and look at the Diary of Anne Frank, which I hadn't in years. I mean, I only looked at it once because I had to, right? And try to see how that was. I also like is another one, Watchmen. I like that. And it's one more, Lovecraft Country, when they put in the history of things. Now with cameras and video, things are verifiable that way. But back then we only had people to tell us. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting take. It did, Gardens. It did. It started to get unbearable. I like the first few seasons, maybe the first 4. So we'll go out with one more Dev and see what Dev is talking about now. One more Dev. He got banned for misinformation about Helen Keller. Okay, let's go to Helen Keller's. This is a claim about a caregiver. Let's go to that one.
But Helen Keller caregiver on the prayer list. I didn't know she was having to catch fades with this hoe every day. Why didn't nobody tell me that, bro? How is a blind woman connecting punches upside of your head? You meaning to tell me if you see this blind lady looking a certain direction, you can't move out the way? You can't do that, bro? That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, the more I think about this, I think when I get to church, the more I might just tell the pastor, look, I know God probably put something on your heart and you done studied hard all night. But look, you got to give us a sermon on Helen Keller. We need to know, is this the power of the Holy Spirit? Or is this just a case of an idle mind being the devil's workshop and the devil doing what he do? And that's what I'm saying, bro. So you mean to tell me Helen Keller, after you tell her a word, if she don't like that word, if she get mad, she just punch you upside your head? And you just sitting there, man, I would have hit Helen Keller with an uppercut from hell. Do you hear me? I would have, man, that woman would have been up out of that. She would have, man, you mean to tell me I'm up here trying to deal with your blind behind and you up here punching me? And for one, I wouldn't have got punched. If I can't duck a punch from a blind person, then I deserve to get my ass whooped. To be
Commentary, Blue Commentary, Burgundy Blue Commentary.